Hello everyone, it's Miriam again from Pain Outside the Box, and today I'm going to discuss a topic that's very personal to me, an issue that is sometimes overlooked or not tackled enough when it comes to TMS, chronic pain, and that's the subject of disappointment. Now, what I'm going to share with you in this video is just my personal opinion based on my own observation of myself and the people I've been coaching. So, when it comes to disappointment, I'll be dealing with two manifestations, let's say, of disappointment, and that's the disappointment that we tend to feel in our everyday lives. So, disappointment as a general feeling in our day-to-day lives, as well as the second topic is disappointment when it comes to chronic pain, when we get our symptoms back and how we can deal with that disappointment that floods in sometimes when we think we're doing our best, when we're working, even maybe on TMS, and we get our symptoms still, how to deal with that strong sense of disappointment at the symptoms themselves. So, to start off with the first branch of this topic, I believe that although the focus of emotional repression when it comes to TMS has been on rage, although rage is a very crucial emotion that needs to be uncovered, I think that actually some of the rage that we may have deep inside actually comes from disappointment. So rage, in a sense, may be a way in which we as individuals express our disappointment. And this might highlight and emphasize even more the connection between certain personality traits and TMS pain. So we know that people who are more hardworking, more ambitious, more perfectionistic, they tend to be more likely to suffer from chronic symptoms. And we know that the reason why is that these people have so much more pressure in their life, so much more rage, because all they do is work hard and they don't give themselves time to relax or to be easy on themselves. But also, these kinds of people, these kinds of ambitious, hardworking people, are more prone to experiencing disappointment in their lives. Why? I am guilty of this myself. It's because we always feel that sense that we deserve more. We always feel that we deserve to be rewarded for our hard work, for our efforts. From a young age, we are taught to believe that if there is enough hard work, if there is enough effort, we will get rewarded for it. And that's how our school system worked. I mean, I used to get good grades in school. I used to be rewarded because my parents would be happy. My parents would take me abroad. Sometimes I would get a prize at school as well. My teacher would tell the rest of the class that I did well or that I came first or second or whatever, and that would give me a sense of recognition. But we all know that in our adult lives, we don't always tend to get this recognition that we're seeking for. We don't always get what we think that we deserve, or at least not immediately. And in people who have been ambitious all their lives and hardworking and who have grown up with the same belief that I've just described, this can be extremely crushing. And my problems in fact started when I started to seek employment, when I had no experience, but I felt entitled to get a job because I had worked so hard through all of my school years, through all of my university years. And when I didn't get the job that I knew that I deserved, I had to grapple with that strong sense of disappointment. So it's something that I find isn't talked about that much in TMS communities, which is why I really wanted to get you more aware of any sense of deep disappointment in your life and how it might relate to your rage, to your frustration, and ultimately perhaps to your symptoms. Now, of course, dealing with disappointment in this case, with the disappointment that comes from not getting what you expect from the world, what you expect from others, it is a very tricky business, and I don't think that I can provide you with all the answers, because this is something that I myself have to work on constantly. But it's good to first start with being aware of how much entitlement you feel towards getting something, how much you make your happiness dependent upon getting something, how much did past failures in your eyes perhaps, actually affect you, okay? And then the second step would actually work on the letting go, on maybe talking logically to yourself, asking yourself the question, will this disappointment make a difference in a year's time? Am I over past disappointments, despite the fact that I got disappointed at that time? Did I actually manage to find a different solution or a different path? Because getting ourselves into perspective to see how much weight we give to our successes or failures can make us so much more self-aware. So, this is the most effective thing I find personally, to ask myself if in a year's time this disappointment will make a difference. Whether this disappointment can be remedied in some way. Maybe there's another option. Maybe there's another way I can take to still get happiness out of something. Just as an example, there's disappointment because a holiday got cancelled. Can I maybe go to a different place? Can I maybe just postpone and take the same holidays 3 months later? Anything that kind of attenuates that sense of disappointment, so it doesn't make the outcome you expect so important for you and your happiness. And also asking the question, remember when I got really disappointed when that happened 2 years ago? How am I now? Am I over that? Did I actually find a different way, which perhaps worked out better than if the original plan had worked out? So it's just getting yourself a little bit into perspective to see how much weight you're giving the results that you're expecting of yourself and the things that you're expecting of the world and of other people around you. And now on to the second branch of this topic, which is dealing with disappointment at chronic pain, chronic symptoms themselves. And this is something which I feel I am better equipped to explain to you, because this is something that I myself managed. I feel that I quite managed to come to terms with this. So of course, one of my stumbling blocks was when my symptoms used to return. I didn't quite know about TMS. And each time that my symptoms intensified or returned, I would feel this strong sense of disappointment, okay? Which is, I think, ran much deeper than the sense of frustration or sadness that I felt. Of course, disappointment also leads to sadness, but I think this was the root of all my problems, this disappointment each time I felt the symptoms. So as I was learning about TMS, what I learned, of course, was that I had to stop being so upset at the symptoms, and I had to stop wishing them to go away with all my might. It's the concept that we know of as outcome independence or releasing of resistance. Okay, we can't make our happiness dependent on whether or not we have symptoms. That's essentially the trick to healing from TMS pain. Easier said than done, right? But to actually overcome the sense of disappointment, what worked for me personally the most was actually learning how to observe my symptoms a bit more, and also learning how to observe my own reaction of disappointment. And I realized how powerful that was. I actually realized that this sense of disappointment was so much more hurtful to me than the pain itself. So as I started to learn how to view the pain in isolation through exercises similar to somatic tracking, for example, or meditation, I realized that when I actually viewed the symptoms in isolation, although they were very painful, I didn't feel the weight of them so much. Because what was really crushing me was the disappointment associated with these symptoms. And so the first step is always being aware of the amount of disappointment you're bringing in each time that you feel the symptoms. Why cannot you be more okay with the symptoms right now? If you knew that the symptoms are temporary, you can actually decrease this sense of disappointment, because you might feel it's more acceptable to have symptoms if only you knew that symptoms were temporary sensations. And I know that this can be very difficult for people who have been in pain for months or years. But when you think about the changing nature of pain, when you think about how you tend to have good days and how you tend to have bad days, that's clear proof that the symptoms are always changing. So in a sense, every sensation and every symptom is still temporary. It's always changing, whether for the better or for the worse, but that's a clear indication to you that these sensations are temporary, okay? So what I invite you to do perhaps in the next week, if you tend to grapple with the sense of upsetness and disappointment each time that the symptoms return, first of all, I have to tell you that this, if you resonate with this, if you resonate with this deep sense of disappointment at returning symptoms, this is probably your number one stumbling block towards recovery. This is probably what's keeping you stuck in pain. So for the next week, I would like you to observe this feeling of disappointment whenever you feel it. Imagine that you're an outsider. You're observing yourself reacting in this way. Just get curious. Okay, just get curious what happens when you observe yourself from the point of view of an outsider. Of course, the best way to do this is through meditation and also through somatic tracking, which will get you to observe your symptoms in isolation. In isolation, I mean without attaching the usual judgments, the usual adjectives that tend to make us feel the weight of our symptoms. No, it's about actually observing the symptoms and the sensations as they are, a little bit scientifically, because that can take away the strong feelings of frustration, the strong feelings of disappointment. And if you notice these creep in, also spend some time actually sitting with these feelings. Just let them in, just observe the intensity of them. Just doing this on its own may actually dissolve them. Okay? So 5 minutes is all you need, okay? Each time you get a returning symptom and you feel upset, notice that upsetness, and then notice the symptom in isolation, observe it, and remind yourself that this is a temporary sensation. It's bound to change, it's bound to move, maybe it's not going away yet, but probably there have been some changes. So hold on to those changes as proof of the temporary nature of these sensations. Okay, I hope this will get you to reflect a little bit more on how disappointment may be relevant to your own chronic pain and symptoms. And that's practically all for today. If you need any further help on this topic, there's my online recovery program, which at the moment I'm selling for $149 through my website. Details in the description below. Okay, thank you very much and have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.